In the heart of the endless desert of Ramel, a solitary figure moved slowly across the golden dunes. Sheikh Idris, a 65-year-old hermit, had lived alone here for decades. His white beard rippled in the warm wind, and his deep, weary eyes seemed to have seen the secrets of time itself. His small clay hut, barely a shelter from the sun, held only a mat, an old oil flask, and a few dried loaves of bread. Every morning, Idris climbed the tallest dunes and watched the horizon, where sand met sky in a seamless golden line. The desert's harshness had made his body strong, yet his soul had grown fragile from years of solitude. He spoke to the wind and listened to the whispers of the sands, finding in them a strange, lonely companionship. The days passed in the rhythm of sun, sand, and silence. Idris had long given up expecting change. Yet, as the sun dipped low one evening, painting the dunes in molten gold, he heard something unusual, the soft, deliberate sound of footsteps on the sand. His heart stirred, a flutter he had not felt in decades. Peering over a dune, Idris saw a young woman approaching, carrying a small flask of oil. Her long dark hair swayed in the desert breeze, and her face seemed lit from within, calm yet mysterious. Intrigued, the old hermit called softly, "Come closer. Do not be afraid." The woman paused, hesitant, then quickened her steps. Idris felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest as he reached out to guide her. Without a word, he led her to the top of a tall dune, away from prying eyes, where the desert stretched endlessly around them. There, in the quiet embrace of the sand and sky, a connection, unspoken yet profound, began to form. For the first time in years, Idris felt a flicker of life beyond the desert, a possibility that solitude might finally meet something unexpected. The wind whispered around them, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. The young woman's name was Layla, and she moved with quiet grace across the dunes. In her hand, she carried a small flask of oil, a tool of her trade as a wandering masseuse. Her dark hair shimmered under the desert sun, and her eyes, like twin stars, seemed to hold secrets of their own. She approached Sheikh Idris cautiously, unsure whether the old man was friend or foe. His voice, soft yet steady, called her closer. "Do not fear, child. Rest for a while. The desert is vast, but here you are safe." Layla hesitated. The desert was lonely, harsh, and unforgiving. Yet there was something about the old hermit's eyes, deep, weary, and strangely gentle, that made her trust him. Slowly, she nodded and accepted his offer. Idris guided her to a high dune, where the sand glowed golden in the late afternoon sun. He settled on the mat he always carried, and motioned for her to sit beside him. The silence was comfortable, almost sacred, broken only by the wind and the faint rustle of sand. "Are you a healer?" Idris asked, his voice trembling slightly with anticipation. Layla shook her head, hesitant. "I am a masseuse. I help ease pain only where I am allowed. I am not a magician, sir." Idris smiled faintly, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for his back. "Then perhaps you could help me." For a moment Layla was startled. The desert had made him seem unapproachable, almost untouchable. Yet there was a vulnerability in his request, a silent plea that drew her in. She nodded, and gently, cautiously, she began to rub the oil into his back, her fingers tracing the tension and aches of decades of solitude. Idris closed his eyes, letting the warmth of her hands reach places untouched for years. In that quiet moment, something shifted in the desert air. For the first time in decades, he felt alive, and Layla sensed that this encounter was no ordinary meeting. The sands around them seemed to watch, as if the desert itself approved of this fragile, growing bond. As night fell over the desert, the golden dunes faded into shades of deep blue and silver. The wind whispered softly, carrying the faint scent of sand and distant herbs. Sheikh Idris and Layla remained atop the high dune, the small clay hut behind them casting a shadow in the moonlight. The desert's stillness pressed around them, making every sound, the rustle of sand, the crackle of a small fire, feel amplified. Idris spoke first, his voice low, almost confessional. I have lived here for decades, and yet, I have never shared this silence with anyone. Layla listened intently, sensing the weight of years in his words. She had traveled far, yet never met someone so deeply alone, yet so alive in spirit. She hesitated, then asked softly, "Why are you here alone? Is it a choice? Or a punishment?" Idris' eyes reflected the starlight as he replied, "Both, perhaps. I was once part of a life I can hardly remember. And now, I am left with only the desert to teach me patience and pain." Layla's fingers brushed lightly over the small flask of oil in her bag. There was a strange tension in the air, as if the desert itself held its breath. Then, as if sensing their fragile connection, the wind shifted, carrying a warm gust that wrapped around them like a gentle embrace. 4 hours they shared silence and whispered stories, until the sky darkened fully, and a blanket of stars spread overhead. Idris spoke again, almost to himself. "In this quiet, I feel something I thought I had lost. Hope." Layla's heart quickened. She could not explain it, but the desert seemed different tonight. Less empty, less harsh. She sensed that she had stumbled upon a place not just of solitude, but of beginnings. The night stretched around them, vast and endless, yet within its embrace, the two souls began to find each other. The fire burned low, and the desert slept, but Idris and Layla remained awake, bound by unspoken truths and the fragile promise of connection. That night, silence became a language of its own, speaking to hearts that had long forgotten how to listen. Morning light spilled over the desert, turning the dunes into waves of gold. Layla awoke beside Sheikh Idris, feeling a weight in her chest she could no longer ignore. She had kept her secret hidden for years, but the hermit's calm presence gave her courage. I must tell you something," she said softly, her voice trembling. Idris looked at her with patient eyes, silently urging her to speak. Layla took a deep breath. "Years ago, I sought to preserve my youth and beauty. I met a sorceress in a distant desert who gave me charms and taught me strange rituals. Each month, I had to use the blood of a living creature to maintain myself." Her hands shook as she recounted her story. At first it was small animals. Birds, rabbits, then larger ones. And every time my body ached, my soul grew heavier. I wandered the deserts alone, paying the price of my vanity. Idris listened quietly, the lines of his face softening. A sudden realization struck him. The woman before him, the one who had come to the desert carrying only her oil flask, was Zara, the wife he had lost long ago. The one he had mourned, the one he thought would never return. Layla's eyes filled with tears as she continued. "I waited. I hoped that somehow I could undo the wrongs I had done. And then I found you, here in this endless desert. I did not know it was you at first, but now I see. Fate has brought me back to the only person who can forgive me." Idris felt an ache in his chest that decades of solitude had never touched. He reached out, taking her hands in his, trembling. "Zara, you are here. After all these years." Tears streamed down Layla's face. "I have caused so much pain, but I have learned. Only love and repentance can heal it." For the first time in decades, Idris smiled, a genuine warm smile. "Then your confession, your honesty, is already the beginning of redemption. We can face this together now." Outside, the desert shimmered in the morning sun, vast and infinite, but within that quiet moment atop the dunes, two hearts found the fragile, yet powerful light of forgiveness. The past, once heavy and dark, began to lift as love and truth met under the endless sky. The desert was calm, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. Sheikh Idris and Layla, reunited at last, stood hand in hand atop the tallest dune. The wind whispered around them, carrying away the echoes of years spent apart. "I cannot change the past," Layla said softly, her voice trembling, "but I can choose to heal with you now." Idris nodded, his eyes reflecting both the pain of old wounds and the warmth of new beginnings. For the first time, the desert did not feel empty. Each grain of sand seemed alive, as if the earth itself celebrated their reunion. Idris gently took Layla's hands and said, "Your courage to return, to face what was lost, that is love. That is forgiveness." They spent the day sharing stories of the years they had been apart. Layla spoke of the sorceress, the rituals, the solitude, and the heavy burden of her secret. Idris spoke of the years he had spent waiting, of the silence that had become his only companion. With every word, the invisible walls of sorrow and regret began to crumble. As night fell, they returned to the small clay hut. Idris lit a fire, and together they sat close, the warmth of the flames reflecting the warmth growing between them. Layla gently massaged Idris's hands and shoulders, the same way she had started days ago, but now with love, understanding, and shared history behind every touch. "Now there is no more loneliness," Idris whispered. "No more pain. Only this moment with you." Layla rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "And I will be here always. To share every joy, to heal every ache, to forgive and love." The desert stretched endlessly around them, but the vast emptiness no longer mattered. They had each other. Under the stars, they felt the quiet miracle of forgiveness, the healing power of love, and the promise of a life reborn together. From that day forward, Idris continued his work, massaging and helping others, but his heart and hands belonged to Layla alone. She, in turn, stayed by his side, nurturing their home and their love. The desert, once a place of isolation and sorrow, had become a sanctuary of hope, redemption, and the enduring power of connection. And so, amid the dunes and the endless skies, they discovered the ultimate truth: that love, forgiveness, and companionship are the most profound remedies for a wounded soul. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more videos and follow us for more tales of love, forgiveness, and hope.